Hey y'all, welcome back to the Mr. Global channel. In this piece, I have a little bit of a different take on the Jeffrey Epstein client list. It's not something I've heard people talk about. That doesn't mean they haven't. It's just something I haven't heard. But before we get into that, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate all my new followers and subscribers. So on the Jeffrey Epstein list, where are we at? Okay. They said it's not a thing, right? So they came out, they said it's not a thing. And now you have Donald Trump calling a lot of his supporters very stupid people for insisting that it be released, even though it's something that he campaigned on vigorously. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump was so into the Epstein list that he tried to tie E. Jean Carroll to it during her defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump. So, you know, he was fully behind talking as much about Jeffrey Epstein as he could. And then we got to the point where Republicans in Congress voted down the list or the files being released to the public. Now, here's, I think, one possibility that a lot of people aren't considering. First of all, I think a lot of people in Congress and the White House know, of course, exactly who was on that list. But here's the thing. I don't think it's any politicians that are in government today. I don't think that is what they are afraid of. I think it's more likely, because you have to understand, these were extremely wealthy people. Epstein's clients were mostly billionaires or people that were very close to billionaires. We're not talking about members of Congress, in my opinion. I don't think Donald Trump is on there. I mean, he could be, but I honestly don't think he is. But he might be. But I don't even think so much that is the issue. Even if he was involved, I don't know that there's any evidence. What I think, and hear me out on this, what I think is that there are some conservative mega donors on the list. And I think that is what they really fear the most, because these conservative mega donors, they can donate essentially unlimited amounts of money to conservative super PACs and other political action committees. And just members of the Republican Party being tied to these big whale donors in some way, shape, or form is going to be really bad for them. It really is. In addition to that, they'll lose those donors. They will lose those donors. And I don't know who they are. I think this has more to do with donors than it does people that are actually in office. And of course, you know, Donald Trump's name could be there, but honestly, it really doesn't matter. They're going to be able to control, and they're trying to control, what parts of that get released. You've heard Donald Trump say, you know, allow them to release the credible parts. Allow them to release the credible parts of the Epstein files. To me, that means allow them to release the things that doesn't hurt us. We're going to pick and choose. What that means is we're going to pick and choose the parts of the Epstein files or list, whatever you want to call it, that gets released to the public. And when you have a government that's in control, a party that's in control of all branches of government, and they want to cherry pick information that is released about something of this nature, that should be very concerning. I don't think it has anything to do with credibility. And I think it has more to do with the Republicans in charge, specifically Donald Trump, wanting to give his base something that they can chew on, some meat that they can chew on, something that will not hurt Republicans in any way, and probably only hurt the opposition, probably only hurt Democrats. That's what I think this is. I think it's big donors. And I think they're trying to protect those big donors. Neither of these parties go very far without these multi-billionaire donors that contribute to each of their super PACs and all the organizations. This is a product of, obviously, Citizens United. And now that the parties have access to all of this cash, they're afraid to lose it. That is what I really believe, that's what my instinct is telling me this Epstein thing is all about. I don't think there's any specific member of Congress. If there is anything in there about Donald Trump himself, there's not a chance we would ever get to see that. It's not a thing. And I do think there's some validity to, the statement, why didn't the Biden administration release if Donald Trump was in there? This is another reason why I think it's donors, big donors, on both sides. I think the Democrats believe that they can weather the storm of losing big donors. Because they will win more by pushing for this, by being the party that pushes for this to get released. I think they will score more political points if they are the party that pushes for the release of this. Even if they lose some big donor, Lord knows who it could be. I'm certainly not naming any names. I'm not going to, that would just be conjecture if I named names. But I think those big donors are out there, and I think they're definitely telling the Republican Party to keep your mouth shut. If you want any more of my money, keep your mouth shut. In addition to that, they may be dangling a carrot out there for the midterms. You keep this under your hat, and I will help you immensely during the midterms. There's a lot of deal making, I think, going on. It is the sickness that infests the government today is these big money donors. If it's anybody that does anything as nefarious as what happened with Epstein and Epstein Island, it's going to be the billionaires. And it's of course it's the billionaires that spend all their money donating it to government. They basically control what our representatives in Washington, D.C. do with their dollars. That is the effect of Citizens United. So I think it's donors. I think it has something to do with donors. I don't know if we're ever going to come to any conclusion on this, but I don't think it's people in office right now. I think it's donors. The famous people, they talk about Hollywood people. I'm sure there's some Hollywood people on there. I'm sure people don't care. I think the people that care, I think the people that people really care about are people that are making decisions or donating and putting people in office that make decisions. This is more about what's happening within the government, I think, than people outside of the government. Of course, there would be, some really bad days for some of the folks in Hollywood, but that doesn't impact our government. I don't think our government's trying to protect anyone in Hollywood, is what I'm saying. I think they're trying to protect big donors. Big donors. That's where I'm at. This is obviously an evolving and evergreen case. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be back on in a little bit with another piece of information. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments.